All right, we're good.
All right, should we go? All right, y'all. Today I'm here with Don Tran, a student, coach, entrepreneur, and a former Marine Raider. Don, how are we doing today, brother?
Doing good, brother. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I love what you guys are doing with 38 Challenge and kind of the struggles that you guys are going through and trying to push that and help the people that are going through the same struggle. So that's amazing what you guys are doing. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, and appreciate your help from the beginning. Don was one of the first people to reach out. Said he'd do anything to help our cause, and you've been there since the beginning. And I know I can count on you for anything, brother. So I'm excited to get in today. Excited to hear your story. Your thoughts, your experiences. So I guess we'll start from the beginning of your military career. What brought you to be a Marine Raider?
Yeah. So I joined the Marine Corps right after high school at 17 years old. Then I joined and I went over to 1st Marine 4th Battalions first as an infantry guy. I did 2 deployments over there to Iraq. And then when I got back, I went over into tried out for a stay platoon, which is a sniper platoon within the infantry unit. Made the platoon, but I never got a chance to go to the actual sniper school. So during the transition of going into that, Marine Corps snipers are called hogs, so hunter of gunmen. And if you're not a hog within the platoon, you're a pig. So if you're a pig on the platoon, you're pretty much kind of treated like a lesser, which is rightfully so because you're trying to earn your spot on the team and become a Marine Corps sniper, which is like one of the highest calibers at the time that I really believed was in the military. So you pretty much had to carry like what they call a pig egg around. So you take a 35-pound sandbag, you duct tape it up, and you throw in your bag, your rucksack, and you run it everywhere you go, from the chow hall to classes to training. Was just like a rite of passage kind of thing. So I was on the platoon for about 4 to 6 months, and I was an E4 corporal at the time, and I was trying to get my slot to go to sniper school. But I was never afforded the opportunity. We had some new guys come onto the team that were higher ranking than me, then they got to go instead. So at that point, I was literally looking to transition and get into doing something better because I really believed I had a better calling than just being the infantry. Don't get me wrong, the infantry is an amazing place where you can learn, grow, and do work for the people around you, your brothers, as well as the country, but I just felt like I wanted to be somewhere higher. So there was like this trailer across the street at Camp Horno, and they had always had these cool guys coming out of there with camis or camouflage uniforms that look cooler than everybody else with like Velcro on the side. And they weren't wearing standard issue boots, so I was like, hey, what are these guys about? So I went into the trailer, and it was the MARSOC recruiters. And they gave me an opportunity, like, hey, you want to go to assessment and selection? I put my package together, and my unit didn't sign off on it, which was kind of shitty. But my old XO for my company, he was over at the regiment already. So he was like, hey, let me help you out. Kind of backdoored my command at the time and got me a chance to go to selection. So I went over selection and I got back and I made it. And then I got back and I met my business partner Prime there. And we went to selection together through some crazy events, team events, and he was able to help me out. So we kind of built a strong bond. And then he gave me an opportunity to work at the pool. So I was working at the pool, became a water survival instructor there. Then after that, I went over to MARSOC, to the school over in North Carolina. So I spent 8 years over there, did a few deployments to Afghanistan and then over to the Philippines. And then I got lucky and did one to Australia as well,
Nice.
which was an amazing time. Yeah. But that was pretty much my career. Did 12 years active duty, and then I did a year in the reserves as well, with 4th Force Reconnaissance out in Alameda in Hawaii, which was amazing.
So can you kind of go into what MARSOC assessment was like, kind of that program a little bit deeper, as you were training and kind of what you went through in that aspect?
Yeah. So currently it's a 6-week program. When I went through, it was a 3-week program, and it consists of a whole bunch of rucking, land navigation, team events, some stress management scenarios. But yeah, so it's just a test. Some of it's kind of not supposed to be talked about, so we'll just leave it at that. But
Yeah.
if anyone's looking for any information, read the book The Chosen Soldier. That has a lot of information on there that can really help people out.
Absolutely. So what was your biggest takeaway, kind of the greatest thing that you learned as a Marine Raider in the MARSOC program? What what was the biggest takeaway you had from that whole experience?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
probably the two top things that kind of came out of it was being a Marine as a whole. You know, there's a huge saying and like the ethos of is always to adapt and overcome. And because they always talk about when you go on a mission and the first time you get shot at on a mission, the plan pretty much goes to shit. So kind of got to adapt to that situation and figure out the best route to kind of come at it. And with that is always being calm, cool, and collective when you, as much as you can be, and then evaluating the situation and coming up with different solutions to be able to evaluate that kind of situation, right? So whenever your opportunity arises and you're presented with one choice, you're pretty much fucked, right? Because you're pretty much going down that route no matter what. But if you're
Absolutely.
presented with, you develop two different courses of actions or two different options for you, you can always pick the better of the two. If you come up with three, you pick the better of the three. That's just like a natural thing that happens. So kind of adapting to the situation, overcoming. And the other one is oh man, I lost my train of thought.
No worries, bro. You're good.
Yeah, but that was the biggest one to adapt and overcome. Oh, here it is. So the other thing is like right when I checked into MARSOC, one of my senior enlisted advisors there, his name was Master Sergeant Brute. He was a gunny at the time, but he was like, hey, you know, like when you come on this team, he was like, hey, who thinks you're a cool guy, operator, and everything like that. And we just graduated ITC, which was like our pipeline. And everybody raised their hand, like, oh yeah, you know, like we've made it or whatever. He's like, you haven't made anything yet. You know, being an operator is just about being a problem solver. So if you can be a problem solver and everywhere you go, you're going to be successful within MARSOC. And it's true because when you're on a team, you're not just a shooter. You're not just a communications guy. You hold probably like 3 or 4 billets at the time and kind of managing that for your team because you're such a small team deploying to a place that has to do so much. Whether you're training foreign forces, controlling the armory, and being a shooter, or you know, there's just so many things on your plate. So being a problem solver and being adaptable to all the situations was like the biggest thing that I took away from the military.
Absolutely. And we'll get into this later a little bit more, but it sounds like those skills have really carried along with you as you became an entrepreneur and as someone who is trying to use your experiences, you know, serving this country. There's definitely a lot of mirrors, you know, into the business world, into starting a business, into succeeding and failing and that world. And we'll get a little bit of that later, but you know, obviously, you know, what we're about here at the 38 Challenge, and that's, you know, letting people like yourself give a platform to give a testimony about TBIs, about mental health struggles. So is there an instance in the military where, I'm sure there's a couple, you know, you could think of, but you know, where you experienced a TBI, and could you kind of take us through that story a little bit?
Yeah. Oh man, which ones do I talk about here? In Iraq, my first deployment, we drove over a lot of IEDs. Some of them were catastrophic, some of them weren't. Of course, we were up armored, and at the time, we're like, hey, how do we make these? We were still driving Humvees back then over in the Middle East, which was a horrible platform because it's a flat bottom. The truck always explodes, flips over, and doesn't have a lot of armor underneath the truck. So one time we drove over an IED and boom, I was in the back right seat and my head hit the top as much as possible. It didn't blow up anybody in the car. And it was all external, which is thank God, because if pressure got inside the cab, of course, it would mess everybody up. But
Yeah.
blew up the front right tire and part of the engine block. I think it was probably like 25 pounds of HME or something like that. But that was my first one. And in the military, especially in the infantry, like when you're looking at it, like they like, oh man, are you bleeding anywhere? You know, they go over through this like Marsh algorithm, like, hey, massive hemorrhage. Is your airway okay? Is your respiratory okay? And you know, they go through this thing, but the last H is head trauma. But when you get hit in the head, like you don't always know that you've been concussed or you've been take a big blast or anything. Like the effects doesn't come right away. You know, so
Absolutely.
like when I got back from that, like I was feeling like extreme headaches, and I was like throwing up for 2 days. You know, like from the extreme headaches all the time. But we weren't like afforded the opportunity to fly back from throwing up or having a headache. That wasn't like a casualty situation
Of
that they
course.
can send you back from. So
Yep.
that was like one of the biggest ones in the military. Been in like helicopter crash, smacking my head up and down the back of a ramp. Yeah, just so many. Shooting a Carl G, like which is like an A2 recoilless round rocket, pretty much, and you're only supposed to shoot like 2 of those a day, I think. And I shot like 3. And although like my back blast area was all clear because there's a lot of pressure coming out of the back, like there's a side wall right next to me as well, and I was like sick and nauseous after that for so long as well from the blast coming in. But just so many, dude. But a lot of times, like in the military, guys don't allow those situations to hinder you or slow you down. They're like, hey, suck it up, continue on and push the mission. And so a lot of times that's kind of required, whether if you're in a gunfight or you're dealing with a shitty situation, that you need to figure that out first. But when they come back from deployment, that's still not addressed. And it's kind of like the warrior culture that they promote, but it's a bad negative warrior culture that a lot of the military units out there really has, that they don't really help or like find time to help these guys out. I remember like back in Iraq or something like that, my second deployment, they put these like blast things on our helmets to kind of measure how much TBI, or how much pressure you have from blast or from shock or something like that. But it wasn't a really accurate kind of measurement because a lot of guys will drop their helmets and it'll take that impact as something, So when we got back, they read all these things and there was like a whole bunch of jumped up in spikes, but they never really did the due diligence. Like, hey, what day was this on? Like, how do they record that? Or how much impact has it really done? And they never really followed up with that kind of program. Or I didn't see it personally, but just so much things that happen in the military that could have been performed a little bit better to prevent guys from having TBI. And on my way out of the military, I was like, okay, I really think something's rocked my brain. I need to go get checked out. So I went to the TBI clinic. And by that time, it was like a lot of damage has been done, right? From like my concentration, my ability to focus, memory, short-term memory, long-term memory, it was all been affected, but it's kind of too late to kind of help treat that now, being so many years later. Because when I did it was like in 2017 for all my tests on the way out. Then my first blast was like in 2006, so like pretty much 11 years of non-treatment for that kind of thing. So
absolutely, man. And I think that's an important thing to know, what you said. Like, when you're in battle and you're getting shot at and you're trying to, save other people's lives as well as yourself, like the last thing you're probably thinking of is, oh shit, I have a TBI right now. Like, what's concussion protocol? Like, so on and so forth. Like that doesn't go through your mind. You have time to think about those kind of things, which I never really thought about. Because, when we talk about TBIs and we talk about the effects of them afterwards, like they are inevitable in the military when you are fighting for your life and to protect those around you.
yeah.
But also, to your point, I think it's incredibly important that's why it's so important that once those do happen after the fact, after the battle, that there's things that can occur right then and there that will help your longevity and your brain, which is, the reason for us talking today, the reason for what we're doing at the 38 Challenge is so that we can start to raise awareness, therefore raise funds, therefore raise research, so that it's not too late. And, when you're saying, well, however many years you've been doing this, like there's steps and there's technologies that can and will be implemented so that you don't have to struggle and feel like, there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah. And like, there's not that much research out about TBI and how it kind of affects you right now. And I know like the athletes community calls it, what do you guys call it?
CTE.
CTE. Yeah. So there's not that much research about it, and it hasn't become recent out until recently. And you see so many football players that have the same issues, because they've been hit so many times. So that's why I commend you, dude. Like an organization like this it really bring awareness and like a cool fitness vibe, a cool kind of culture that it promotes, that really brings awareness, and it makes it not like a negative thing to kind of talk about and to promote it and to bring awareness to, which is amazing, dude.
Absolutely. And so there's so little research, especially there's beginning to be more on the, the football athletic side of it. But like you said, there's like not a lot. People have been researching veteran suicide for forever, and PTSD, a big one, transition, a big one, TBI, and there's still 22 veterans a day that take their own lives. There's still that gap that needs to be filled. Right. And I think, in my very unprofessional opinion, that TBI definitely plays a factor in that, as you're saying, because there's such little research and science has shown that TBIs and what you guys experience from, whether it be a grenade going off by your head, or like you said, an IED, or shooting off a rocket, all of those are way bigger than little concussions or little head impacts that, athletes face. But have the same effects on the brain, which cause to a multitude of other issues. So you kind of touched about it or talked about it a little bit, like what I guess experiences have you seen in your own life, whether that be, mental health? Yes, you mentioned uh, your memory. What have you seen could be, a factor of those TBIs?
Yeah, concentration's huge, right? That's like the number one thing kind of is like a side effect from it that I've seen. And just ability to focus like I used to back then. There's like a lot of things you could do now, and I'm really kind of in that path right now to kind of focus or train my mind to be able to focus more, limit distractions, and kind of think about the task at hand instead of a million different things coming on, Um, yeah, short-term memory sucks, right? That's a big one as well. But with that comes a lot of anxiety, stressors, that things that used to stress out you out, like not stress you out as much, stresses you out more. With all these things that you have, that's you can't focus, you can't concentrate, you can't remember things, that just adds on to all of it, which why so much people have, mental health issues from TBI. That's a direct result of it that comes in on it. And I have so many friends, dude, that the longer they stay in the military and the longer they don't treat it, the worse they become. And so many of my friends are still in the military now, that kind of grew up with me or a little bit higher than me. They're all going through therapy, and it's like trying to put a band-aid on like a bullet shot wound, that is still bleeding out. They might stop it for a little bit, but there's just so much things they need to deal with before. So the best thing we can do is prevent it, right? And then kind of treat it as immediately as it happens. So there just needs to be better protocols for guys getting out, as well as guys that are staying in the military that have experienced something like this. So, and just about the culture of like kind of sharing your experiences a little bit more and trying to open that up for like, hey, it is okay to talk about it, and it's okay to ask for help when you're going through some stuff. And yeah, man, it's just veterans, especially the veterans community as well, they're not doing as much. And even this, man, sometimes people in the military or veterans that get out, and one guy that drove over an ID that didn't get any in a gunfight or something like that, and they're like, hey, I have some traumatic brain injury, and some of the veterans community out there as well, they're like, oh, you haven't been in a gunfight, you're not really this, you're not really that, and they're like kind of shunning upon it, and that makes the situation even worse for them to kind of bring that up,
Yep.
even though they drove over a bomb or even though they faced some trauma. And for them, like them driving over a bomb could be super traumatic as well. Like that could have affected their brain, their minds, their conditions, just as much as some gunfighter out there, like getting in battles like for 30 days on straight, like that balance for how people perceive that is completely different. So I
Absolutely.
just, yeah, which
And
is,
I mean, and the combat training you guys go through, and like you said, shooting off rockets and heavy artillery, like all of that. I mean, it's not natural. It's necessary. It's necessary to protect this nation and our freedom, but it's not natural. And the sacrifice that any veteran makes um, for this nation, knowing exactly what they're getting into, the fact that they aren't and y'all aren't comfortable with sharing out about your experiences because of, like you said, the culture, because of the stigma behind it, that I'm weak, or I'm less of a man, or it's no one else is talking about it, so I mean they're okay. Like that is the purpose of one of the purposes of this 30 challenge, especially this podcast, which is why I'm so pumped to have you on today, talking about it, bringing it to light, because someone sees Don the Marine Raider, whether it's a veteran or whether it's just your average Joe who's too afraid to speak up, or thinks that I'm not worthy, or like I said, I'm weak, I'm not normal. Like we all deal with our shit, and like especially as a veteran, like it's because of the sacrifice y'all have made that you go through what you go through.
yeah, I appreciate that, dude. Dude, another thing I wanted to talk about is there has to be a better solution as well for the kind of medication people are pushing out at the VA, dude. Because when I got out of the military, I had nightmares, I had like anxiety and all that stuff. But like there was like instant answers. Here's 6 prescription medication that you take every day, every morning, and that is not the solution. That is just not the solution. That I was like numb. All my family members were like, dude, like you're not yourself. Like although I was like able to concentrate a little bit more, like it just wasn't me, I was like always at times, if I didn't have the medication, I was extremely a lot more nervous, a lot more anxiety coming on, but I've completely got off all the pills, 100%. So that's been amazing kind of
Yeah,
transition
dude,
for
that
me
yeah, that's also for you. And I
going
mean,
on.
I experience or and I deal with anxiety, depression, so on and so forth. And yeah, people do just and doctors, they just throw pills at you, and people like expect to be okay. I do think that in some scenarios, it's definitely necessary. But especially from what I've heard in like the VA and in veterans, it's a lot of um, you know, opioids, depressants, stuff like that y'all are given, which and as you can see, and it's pretty obvious to tell, that only makes matters worse.
100%, dude. It really does. But I truly believe there's a lot of other medications out there that's really been successful for me and some other of my friends as well that's been through some trauma and been through some TBIs and stuff like that, some plant-based medicine that have really helped people out. So if anybody's listening, I would really encourage you guys to try it out or go out there and seek more information and see which one's like kind of right for you to kind of go through that process, that healing process that you need. So
Yeah,
I've been
absolutely.
blessed to kind of been, yeah, given that opportunity. So I just wanted to share that message out there.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. And yeah, for any listeners out there, because this will be shared, on Don's platforms as well. So any veterans out there that are experiencing these situations and you want to try something new, try something natural, reach out to myself, reach out to Don. We'll put you in touch with
Yeah,
the
for sure.
right people for sure. Um, yeah, man. And just the other part, kind of we talked about earlier, the other part of that treatment, that medicine is just talking about it, feeling comfortable like yourself, like you are now, feeling comfortable going out, sharing this message. I'll talk to anyone, this isn't for, you know, you know, Don, who's, all tatted up and whatever, 13,000 uh, Instagram followers. It's for anyone, any veterans who felt that they need to talk to someone, that's what this is all about. Um, and so I think that's the other part of it too,
Yes, it
is
is,
is
brother.
is being comfortable sharing your own experiences and understanding that it's it's not or what you're feeling is normal. There's nothing that can be unnormal, especially when it comes to mental health. The only thing that isn't that's not okay is feeling that you're not worthy of getting help, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's totally, man. And there's a lot of support groups out there as well. Find a powerful one that is, works for you. Find a 38 challenge. Maybe we can do some meetings or something like that with this. But I know there's a lot out there that will empower you, will help you out, and kind of show you that you're not alone, in this battle. Because if you think about it, there's 22 veterans kill themselves a day. Like that's a lot of people struggling. That's a lot of people struggling. And I personally know a few veterans that have done it. I know some active duty guys that have done it that, within our own Raider community as well. And it's like, dude, how and they look 100% normal. They don't look like they're struggling. They don't but they can't talk to anybody about it. But dude, it's okay to talk about it.
Yep,
It's
and
like 100% okay to
yeah,
talk
and it's
about it. Share
necessary.
it.
And yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, everyone that I've spoken to, um, we've all dealt with someone who commits suicide, and you would never see it coming.
Yeah.
um, and that needs to be addressed too, because there should be tell signs that we're aware of, your average person should be aware of. And then, I mean, but it all starts with seeking help, because a lot of the times, like you said, you never know. So that you can't get help if you don't start and reach out to someone. But yeah, I mean, I want to transition to kind of how you dealt with getting out of the military, how you dealt with some of the things that you talked about earlier, some of your struggles, and leading to Deep End Fitness, leading to the Torpedo League, and whatever else, other million other things you have yourself tied into right now. Just kind of tell me about that transition. Um, how you've done and are doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So I decided to get out of the military because I felt like I saw a lot of the people that grew up in the military with me, and I saw what leadership position they became when they got out of the team. So it was my turn to rotate out to be an instructor over in North Carolina, which I love instructing, I love teaching. But when I got back from North Carolina, I'd probably be in a higher leadership position or outside of a team. And when I joined the military, I was like, hey, all I want to do is kick down doors or drop bombs and be a cool guy and stuff like that. And I felt like, hey, if I have to stay in the military, then I don't want to be in that kind of desk job kind of role, and kind of managing
Yep.
people from that perspective. I wanted to go out and explore and do other things. And I've learned so much from the military. Not that I've learned all I could, but I've definitely learned so much. And I felt like it was a time for me to kind of transition out. So, and I wanted to raise a family, and I saw a lot of my friends and family or friends kind of get divorces and lose their family because of the military. So I didn't want that kind of aspect of it. So it's kind of selfish of me, 100%, but it just felt like it was time for me to get out. So getting out of the military, my partner got out of the military as well. He got medically separated from his back, some crazy TBIs of his own,
Mm-hmm.
getting out. So it was like a perfect time. And we kind of sat down like, hey, we're both getting out, like we've worked really well together at the pool, at MARSOC. So where do we kind of go from here? And he was about to start his executive MBA program at USC. And he was like going through a few classes. So he was like, hey, we should sit down and do what we call a SWOT analysis.
Oh
So
yeah.
just, yeah, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? Strengths,
Yep.
weaknesses, internal, and then opportunities and threats, external factors, right? So we kind of sat down and we both wrote ours down, and then we kind of compared it together like, hey, it looks like we both love the water. We love performing the water. We love being fit. We love coaching people. We love instructing, like teaching people. It's like, hey, maybe there's some kind of angle that we can start here. And we're like, hey, maybe we can start a game or play a game that we used to love to play when we were at the pool, which was underwater football is what we called it at the time, but which is underwater torpedo league now. That was really a game that was like we played to get our focus off of being underwater for so long, and kind of building that confidence and shifting it to the task at hand, which is throwing that torpedo around. But all that being said, like we were transitioning, we're like, hey, let's create a company, or let's create an idea and then kind of run with it. So we beta tested at the end of 2017 while I was still in the military, kind of transitioning out. And we started two teams, one in San Clemente and one in Oceanside, California, and we were able to compete with together. And we had a lot of the support from the Raider community, our brothers that were still in, some guys that got out already that kind of came out and, really supported us. So the moral of the story is like, have that support system, right? And Prime and I have been through a lot together, and we've been through on our own deployments without each other, but we've also experienced the same kind of struggles. So having that kind of network, we had our friend Ricky Breer as well. Like we were all kind of struggling, like figuring out what we were going to do with our lives and kind of moving forward. But we had each other at that moment. I had my family, I had my friends, but it's always hard to kind of talk to some people that haven't been through it. So I had that kind of close knit of friends and that community sense. Even though getting out, I still had that, So in the military, it's easy because you have your brothers that you talk to. Sometimes you can't talk to them about some things, but being out of the military, you can talk to them about anything. I felt like, and I still feel like I could talk to them about anything. So having that kind of close group of friends was amazing. And then after that, it kind of kicked off. We started training some NFL players in 2018 with Deep End Fitness. We created Deep End Fitness as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of really kicked it off for all the professional athletes who train. They brought in their MMA fighter networks. Now we're training Olympic swimmers down at Team Elite, Coach David Marsh, train a whole bunch of pro surfers, and you name it, dude, like all kinds of athletes. Rugby players are going to Olympics right now, swimmers, and just everybody. Yeah. So we're super fortunate to kind of be on the path we are right now. Of course, during the COVID lockdown, we had a complete stop of what we were doing. So
Yep.
we did
You're back
another
up
SWOT
though.
analysis. What's that?
Yeah, I said you're picking up back up now.
Yeah, exactly. So we're picking everything back up. But during the beginning of COVID lockdown, we're like, hey, what can we do right now? Like what are we going to do? All our pools are closed. Our revenue wasn't coming in whatsoever. So we looked internally into the company, like, hey, how can we build something and still push out some positivity throughout the world? So we wrote a book. It's based off of an acronym called FREE, which is focus, relaxation, economy of motion, and efficient breathing. And we use all those principles in the pools, and we developed that the very beginning, like in the end of 2017, like, hey, how can we teach people to train and be a better UTL athlete? That transition to like, hey, how can they be a better performer and athlete overall as we train these professional athletes and just be a better athlete outside of the water and inside the water. And then we're like, hey, we had so many athletes come to us like, hey, this is an amazing concept that I started using it outside of the pool as well. And it's really kind of changing my life on how I view things, how I focus on things, how I understand my energy expenditures with relaxation, and then really economy of motion or economy of movement for like the MMA guys out there, like how to minimize drag, and then taking efficient breaths as well. So we wrote a manual for all our instructors and the people within our community. And the book ended up getting in the hands of a publisher that trained with us before. She's an MMA fighter as well, and she followed one of our pro MMA fighters like religiously. Her name's Alima. But yeah, so she got us a publishing deal, and we just pushed out the book. Now we're on like a coaching platform as well on Kajabi, trying to design a program that can help people focus, relax, move better throughout their day or in fitness, and then as well as breathe better. That alone's really kind of helped me out and focus on something that is providing so many good things for other people that I think that broke through of like all the negative things I had. Of course, everybody still has their struggles. I still deal with a lot of things, but having a mission, having a purpose, still transitioning out of the military, because in the military it's always like, hey, let's go fight a war, let's go do some things and we always had a mission. Right now it's like, hey, when you get out, like, what is your mission? So our mission statement is to create a warrior class of people, so ignite a warrior class of people. I'm sorry. So like we go out there, we try to ignite a warrior class in everybody from teachers to CEOs and companies to athletes, and try to find that warrior spirit within them to kind of engage in their own battles in life. And that doesn't have to be if you're a cop or a firefighter, but kind of just help them fight their own battles, whether it be at work, with their families, or providing for their families, or whatever that is, kind of ignite that in them. So it's been going amazing, and we've been super blessed with the opportunities we have. We have some amazing people on our team as well, and family and friends that are supporting us throughout every step of the way. So it's been an awesome journey, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah. And excited to read that book. And there's so many, tie-ins with what we've been talking about today, especially, with, like you said, with freeing your mind, your book. And that's the other things that we're kind of talking about with 30 challenges, just ways to live healthy, healthy ways to deal with stress, anxiety, life, fitness, just overall becoming a better person or a better version of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And before you can do that, in my opinion, got to attack the mental side of it first, which I'm glad we talked about today. I'm glad, we'll be doing this together, brother, and helping some people out. Yeah. So everyone, that was Don Tran, former Marine Raider, Deep End Fitness, Torpedo League. Check it all out. Check out his book, Free Your Mind. And Don, obviously this won't be even close to the end of our relationship, brother. So looking forward to doing some good with you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and hopefully we see all of you guys out at one of these events where we're doing the 38 challenge.
Yes, sir. Yep. August 8th, baby. We'll see you guys there. Deep End Fitness, Torpedo League. I think we'll be hosting, one of their special workouts. So we'll get it going. We'll see y'all there.
All right, brother.
All righty.